Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira, sitting next to, I forget this guy's name, John Teixeira, possibly?
No, he doesn't.
We are back this week to discuss Build to Rent, BTR. If you would like to discuss this with us, listen more, or just give us a call. The number is 817-818-9039. You can always shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com. John, that's your name, right? Let's get into it. What's BTR?
You know, I've never forgotten my father's name. I don't believe for a second that you have either.
But you have forgotten my name.
Never. Well, I've gotten it wrong, but I don't get it. Every father does that.
Just say. It's true. You never forget my name. You just say all three of your kids' names.
You might be third or fourth in line. You might be behind the dog.
Throwing a dart at the name board.
Yeah. So, anyways, what are BTRs?
You'll call me Trevor on this podcast.
Bill, I might do it on purpose now. Build to rent. So what are build to rent? Build to rent is basically a community that somebody builds and develops specifically for rental. So that, instead of an investor going out and buying a small apartment complex or a portfolio of houses, they actually build a brand new development that the entire development purpose is to rent.
Yeah, and a lot of people might think that happens all the time. You can rent anything after it gets built. Well, this is actually somewhat tying two roles together, right? Like, even if you build something and sell them all, they're generally sold to landlords and then they rent it to you, right? This is like the developer or whoever put in the money or whatever, who's intending to build these is also the person who's intending to rent them. He's also the investor, so the developer becomes the landlord or maybe not necessarily the builder, but whoever's the developer then becomes the landlord. So like, why are we bringing this up?
Well, we're bringing it up because it's kind of a fad, right? We've been talking about rents and what's been happening with rents, and it's been kind of a fad to do this. We've been talking about it. You and I have been talking about it and talking to our colleagues about it for probably about 4 to 5 years. It's kind of emerged as a let's say a standard topic at conventions and so forth, but it's really come to fruition, and we're starting to see a lot of these popping up in our metroplex probably over the last couple years, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary, because it definitely started before COVID. Like, this wasn't just a spike from COVID thing. Like a lot of other things, build to rent was gaining traction. So yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, I was guessing on some 4 or 5 years. But the point is, it's a new emerging trend. I'm sure somebody did it, even way back before then, but it wasn't an emerging trend. It wasn't something people were talking about or doing very often. Right now, it seems like institutional money is doing it, and when that happens, that really makes it an emerging trend.
Yeah, it's never been this it's never been this prominent or this big of a portion in the rental market.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's a growing subset of the rental market.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Well, that's what it is. That's why it matters, right? Why does it matter to you? Well, to investors, it can be a good investment. We're going to get into that. To tenants, there can, all parties, there could be an advantage. There's really advantages and disadvantages. So, give us some of those numbers, John.
On the data. So the I've got some annual data here that I pulled off the internet. So how true it is, I don't know. And these are all 2024 numbers. So we got to keep that in mind. In 2025, I guarantee you these have jumped up. But in the U.S., we've done roughly 39,000 single family build to rent. And really, that's what we're talking about. We usually don't, when you do condos and townhomes, apartments that on mass scale, that's not so unusual, is it? That's more normal to do that.
That's really always been done, right?
Right.
It's kind of.
We're really talking about like, somebody putting together a
neighborhood
of homes, garden homes or small homes, whatever. So 39,000 in the U.S. in 2024, but hundreds of thousands are in the pipeline. So some of those are actually being built right now, and that jump between 39,000 in 2024 and going to estimates of hundreds of thousands for, the coming 2 to 5 years is pretty insane. It goes to the point we made about timing, right? That it's an emerging trend. So those are really all the data I have for you. Although one other thing, and this will be important for our future discussion, is this resident behavior. We're up to 36% of renters that prefer renting and don't have an interest in buying versus what it was before was 27%. That was more the norm. So that doesn't seem like a huge jump, but it is a huge jump. It's a huge shift in mindset of the renters when just 27 to 36 that's a big amount, a large amount of people.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about who that tenant is. I mean, you say they're kind of jumping from renting and no longer buying. Well, if you want to live in something brand new and rent at the same time, and that's what's kind of the newer trend, is that wasn't really a very prominent thing you could do. I want a brand new house, but I want to rent it.
There weren't a bunch of those opportunities.
Yeah, or a whole neighborhood of houses where you can say, hey, let's all go rent in there.
You do that in apartments, right? Yeah. New apartment complex pops up. They do introductory offers, move-in specials, right? So it helps you get in. It's brand new. You have some amenities, but you're still living in apartments. You still have the disadvantages of living in apartments. You have neighbors. You're sharing things with neighbors. You're got neighbors that are allowed to have through paper thin walls, right?
Common spaces and common elements of your home.
People get tired of some people get tired of apartment living. Some people don't mind it, but
well, what pushed everybody out of apartment living into houses and needed to create the new apartment I guess dynamic in single family homes?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes against what I said earlier about build to rent. And this has been pushed a little bit by COVID, because when everybody was staying at home, then everybody was sharing walls. So that's where they started doing the single family. Not started, but that's where it got really prominent, because a bunch of people who are used to living in apartments now want to live in a single family home.
Can we just say 2020? Do we have to? Does it have to be the whole
I
year?
wish we could, but if,
do we have to label it COVID?
I wish it was just a year, but never forget.
I think I'm being never forget. I'd like to forget that one.
Yeah.
We can never forget 9/11 and forget COVID. How's that? Anyways, back on topic. You're absolutely right though, Kyle. Like that mindset shift, and that the best of both worlds of being able to get new and not live in an apartment. And on top of that, this being an emerging trend that's working for investors, right? You add all that together and it's happening. I mean, it's happening in a big way, in a much bigger way. I've been saying,
and they're
Kyle,
building out of the cities and
the entire cities have build to rent. I've been saying for quite some time now to internally to us and to our clients that, we're talking about why rents have been flat and what's making them not go up like they were. I think this has a lot to do with it. I think the number of units that have come on the market, in our market at least, and we're one of the top 3 markets in the country for build to rent, is where we are right here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And the amount of units that just get flooded into the market all at one time has an impact on that surrounding market. Even if it doesn't have an impact on the entire market, at least has an impact on that micro community that people are moving into. They're making choices of where they're going to rent. And now they've got 48 new homes down the street to choose from. Right?
Are you telling me that supply affects price
and demand? Yeah.
There's no way.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
There's no way. This is a great example of that.
Such a basic principle. Sometimes I wish our politicians would go back to school and learn basic economics.
You don't need to get much further than basic economics. There's supply and demand.
You can learn supply and demand, and that's it.
Pendulum that's,
supply and demand.
Everything else falls into, right?
Capitalism, supply and demand. Yep. That's it.
the value of $1, right?
No, you don't need any of that. Just
you don't
supply
need
and demand.
any of that.
Nope. All starts with
Supply of dollars.
Create demand, create supply.
What if you have an unlimited
Balance it all
supply of
right.
something?
Then it's going to be worth less.
Never mind.
That's why my BS is worth so little, because there's an unlimited
supply of it and a very little demand.
Very little demand. There you
Non-existent
go. See?
demand.
See?
It makes the quality of the product very.
I'm just trying to demonstrate supply and demand here.
Okay, so we flooded the rental market with build to rent homes. What does that do to multifamily?
Well, no, the question is that why would somebody do this? So from an investment point of view, why would somebody do this versus going out and buying a house, a portfolio, a small apartment complex, something like that, right? And I think the biggest advantage is that they call it CapEx. It's not that complicated, but if you don't understand what it is, then it's complicated. And I hate these kinds of terms and numbers, to be honest. You know this. I hate them. But anyways, it's basically, taking into account the repairs and the capital improvements that are needed throughout owning the home. And because they're brand new, you won't have major repairs to do, hopefully, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference it's a different standard of rental, right? You're getting, most rentals out on the market there are, for lack of a better term, used homes, right? They're older homes that are entering their maintenance depreciation timelines where they have a lot of things go wrong. Like when you have a home that was built 20 to 30 years ago.
That's a good word. Can we use that one again? Can we find a way to use maintenance depreciation? I like that. We should title a podcast. We got to make up a definition for it though. That's good.
That's the actual definition. It's like that's why you get depreciation write-offs on everything, because they depreciate. So
okay.
But you threw me off.
I'm sorry. My bad. Maintenance depreciation is what you were talking about.
You're in those timelines. You're more. That's where a lot of rentals enter the market, and where they've is more common and have been more common. Not 1-year-old homes, 0-year-old homes.
I mean, the reality is you're not going to have to do hardly anything substantial to that home for 15 to 20 years, hopefully, right? And then things will start happening, in that period of time. But when you buy an old home, how old is your home? Your home was probably built in like 1986, right? There's always going to be something. Did I almost nail it?
I think
somewhere in there.
I think it was 87.
There's always going to be something with a home that size that you are going to have to do. Like even things you don't think about. Like you get up on the roof and all of a sudden you realize that there's a rotted eave that you didn't even know about and you couldn't see, and now that's got to be fixed. And you know what I mean? It's just like age and deterioration happens with homes. And
and we've never really brought this factor up, but I've talked about it with investors, is when you start building a big rental portfolio, like a number that starts to matter is your average age of home. So if you have 25 to say 40 homes, right, and your average age of home is 20 years, well, in 10 years and you don't change anything, now the average age of home is 40 years. Now the average age of home becomes older, and when your average age of your home is 40 years, your average CapEx is probably higher than it was when it was 20 years old.
Yeah, and that's what we're focusing on right now in this conversation, is that CapEx number. But there's other advantages to the older homes, right? Let's not knock them all, right? I mean, usually you're buying them cheaper, right? They're always going to be in demand. They're usually in mature neighborhoods and mature areas where things are already flowing and going, and people, it's turnover is easy, and in good school districts a lot of times. And so there's a lot of good things about it. So we're just trying to compare the two. Why would you do it?
And then some number of reasons is like you have, high prices right now. We've had high interest rates. These things can get you really close to your cash flow break even. Well, investors can be comfortable near break even, especially in real estate, because it's a long-term investment. Well, when you're near break even and have high capital expenditures, then your cash flow is near break even, but then you're getting hit with that's what CapEx means, capital expenditures, right? So cutting that out helps you get to the long-term part of the investment without putting more money into it. Also, the being that this is being more common with single family is they're getting to go further outside of the main cities or the higher populated areas where they generally build the apartment complexes, which means the land's cheaper. So they can maybe get the land cheaper, which then ultimately makes the build cost cheaper. So there's more margin for making money, because that's all it's about, right? When you're building something, because a lot of these, when you're building something like this, it's usually tied to bank financing, right? And the banks have to make sure that whatever you're going to do is going to make money. They don't just throw money at you.
Well, we're going in that direction. I want you to talk about that. Before we do, one of the other mindset changes for an investor when they're deciding between this is a lot of investors, right, can and want to manage their own properties, right? And they absolutely can do that. Well, you and I talk about the advantages to having a professional do it, and having somebody like us do it, how we can save you and make you more money by doing it, having a professional do it. But that doesn't mean you can't do it, and some people really want to. I had one of our investors tell us yesterday about some of his portfolio we don't have, and he said, "Well, I'm about to be done with this project. If I give you the rest of my portfolio, I won't have anything to do, and I'm so used to having so much to do. I need something to do." I'm like, "Okay, I got it, whatever."
Well,
but
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That leads great. And what I was thinking is that, you can do more than one job. You can have more than one business. That's all you're saying. I mean, it's like Elon's like, I can build rockets and electric cars. Yeah, you can. And you did. I mean, but
it's making yourself scalable.
It is another business. It is another thing that you could hire someone to do as a service. It's another business. You're now managing your own you're now a property manager, not just a developer.
Well, we've now derailed from my original point, so I'll try to get back to it in a minute, but to your point, in my conversation, I'm like, well, you can just, worry about
finding another
development and getting ready. He's like
working more at that and less at this.
And he had a great answer. He's like, "Yeah, my wife will kill me. I need a break from this." Because the reality is, and let's get into, well, we're going to get into this later, but let's hold off on that, because that is one of the disadvantages, right? And we're gonna talk about that here in a moment. But what I wanted to talk about was the mindset shift for an investor when he's looking at buying a house or a small fourplex or something like that, and they want to do it themselves. They absolutely can, right? And often do. I'd say 8.5 out of 10, I think, is the number, actually self-manage. So when you're looking at a large development like this, let's say it's 10, 20, 50, 100 homes, there's no way you're even considering doing that. Like, you can't. Like, do not do a build to rent and consider not getting somebody to professionally manage this for you that has systems and expertise in place to do it. Like, just don't do it. Like, this is such a huge part of the whole process, right? It's not just
a lot can go wrong. You're just making it a lot different.
And it's a numbers game, and one person or one small team even can't keep up with the numbers, and get your cash flow going the way you need it to.
Well, and let's talk about disadvantages, because we're making this sound like why don't everybody go do it, right? Well, the easy answer there is if everybody did it, there'd be an oversupply and it wouldn't be worth it. But that is actually one of the disadvantages. I exaggerated it a little bit, but supply risk.
You actually shoot yourself. Yeah. So you actually shoot yourself in the foot with supply, don't you? Like, okay, I have a market I'm about to build in, and the demand is 1,000 homes. And right now there's 1,200 homes available, and I'm about to go dump another 100 in there and make the problem even worse. Right?
Even if it's 10,
it doesn't matter. You're just making the problem worse by the amount of homes that you're building.
And that's market dependent, but and I think the biggest disadvantage or risk is I hate using the word disadvantage. The risks, you can mitigate risks, but it's one of the biggest factors in investing that it should be weighted almost the most is time. And you have a big time factor in this before you make it to market. So you have to start the process, buy the land, do all these things that take time based on an analysis that was done in a different market that it's going to be by the time you rent it. So
that's
the market
exactly
you
right.
build in is going to be different than the market you rent in, most likely. I mean, because it's different time.
People don't appreciate how long it takes to find a piece of property, do the engineering necessary to make sure that that piece of property can be developed, take it to maybe a city or a planning zoning board, right, to get that approved, get the funding, right? Unless you're a billionaire, you probably need to go get funding for it. Even billionaires are going to go get funding for it, right? And
They
then
didn't become billionaires by using their own money.
and then start planning, and then start finding your contractors and managing your contractors and get that build process started. We haven't even got into the build process yet. You're probably a couple years in, and people don't appreciate that. They think that, oh, there's a lot over there. I can just go buy that and start building.
In years, a lot can change with people and contractors.
Absolutely.
And risk management and
interest rates and presidents. And
this is why you'll see communities, probably build rent communities, that just go bankrupt or it's just completely stop getting built, and people will think to themselves, how can you put that much money into something and just walk away from it? And from the other side of it is, if it's not your money, the numbers could change and the market could change and the bank giving you the money could see, all right, well, this isn't going to work anymore, so unless you got all this money to put up, we're done funding it. So
this is a real problem that we've watched. 2 investors on 3 different properties we've watched this happen to, right? Recently. And to your point, they planned all this in a much better environment, in a much better economy where things were going great. And now here we are trying to rent these things, and they can't even get, they're $200, $300, $500 less than they thought they were going to be, than they planned for when they.
Yeah, and a lot of these things don't operate in fixed rate environments, right?
That's
so
right.
You could get completely, the project could go underwater solely because interest rates go from 0 to 8. Like, that's never occurred.
So do we just talk people into BTRs and then talk them out of it?
No, risk management. It's all of what it all is, right? Know your worst case. Plan for the worst case, because that's probably the worst thing people don't do, is if you do something completely based on the word of maybe a contractor and then that contractor leaves and now you're all of a sudden a builder.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, the developer side. There's ways to do these without filling all the roles. Hiring a developer, hiring a builder, hiring a property manager. Any 3 of those don't work as they should. Just the service base of it can go wrong. So,
yep. We kind of talked about, regulations and stuff, and that's an issue with these too. That's another downside is, when you're putting in big developments, you got to get past politics, right? Planning and zoning boards, and sometimes you got to take it to city council and do all that stuff. And so getting past all that, I sat down with a large company, I'm on an HOA board, and they sat down with our board to tell us about what they wanted to do at a nearby lot, basically next to our neighborhood. And it was a build-to-rent community, and they had a whole design that was really good. Like, I would love for this community to come in here. They were literally offering community space for all of the neighbors around us to be able to use, right? A food truck lane, and a place for people to have activities for free, right? They weren't asking for anything. They just wanted to be a great neighbor and build this really great build-to-rent community that also served the surrounding neighborhoods. And it was a great idea. Guess what? They're getting pushback from the city council because city 15 years ago, in making their master plan, decided that they wanted that lot to be a certain way, and this didn't exactly conform to that. So, instead of bending and saying, okay, this is an even better idea than the one we had 15 years ago, they're just gonna, it's the politics of it all, and it's unfortunate.
Well, and there could be rental caps in certain places. I don't know what that that specific example use that reasoning, but cities have rental caps, so they take all that into consideration.
Well, they just wanted 50-50 retail use on that, and so, which is actually hard to do when you think about it, especially now the way developments are developed nowadays. They don't do 50-50 anymore, right?
That's kind of funny considering I know where you're talking about, and there isn't a 50, there isn't a 1090 retail.
There isn't any retail over there at all.
Retail
There's
residential
one
combination anywhere
There's one
within
strip
10
mall.
miles of there. No, that strip mall is in another city.
No, it's fine, but whatever. But the point is that we desperately need some retail like that, and yet they've hamstrung.
Should we do a podcast over the power of city councils on real estate?
I don't know. Maybe. If people want it, they can ask for it. We'll give it to them.
Just put that under our risk category for pretty much anything we ever talk about.
There you go.
They can hammer it on you.
Kyle, let's talk about financing. Let's talk about the benefits. Yeah, because you're in tune to this. The benefits and the disadvantages to the financing.
There can be some benefits in that. Well, it's a lot more complex, and I'm just going to talk about how it's standardly done. This is a development, but being a build to rent, it's like a combination of different rent requirements, investor financing requirements, I would say, because when you build something, generally they put up pretty much, for an experienced builder or developer, the bank's going to start by putting up pretty much all the money to do it, and you just pay interest on that until it's done. And once it's done, it essentially converts to a term note that people are more familiar with. Well, that could be a positive, it could be a disadvantage, because if you planned this where in a low rate environment, expecting to get a low rate term when this is done in 6 months or a year, and rates end up going high, and now you're paying high interest and you're going to end up finishing it, because you don't get to pick when it finishes. I mean, maybe you do, but once it's done, the bank's going to be like, all right, it's done, and it's converting this term note. Now you got a PITI, you got a full principal payment, interest payment, so your monthly payment goes up. And what if you can't rent them out? Now you got that problem to do. So
and they do work. I believe they work with you based on the build to rent. They have special programs where they work with you while you're renting it out and stuff. But the point
there
is,
could be delays,
it's
like
definitely more complicated,
deferred,
isn't it? And
it is, and you're working with the person financing you to manage that risk, right? And they do have more of a shared interest, which can be a positive as well.
What if I am Joe Blow, never done this before, I have 10 houses and I want to get into this? What does that look like? Never done it before.
Well, you better make it sound like you got more experience doing something than that when you talk to a banker, right? So
that's what kind of my point.
This is where to answer your question, you need some gusto in that scenario, that some people that have done it before.
Yes, that's where I was going with that, and that's what I was hoping you would say. Was partner with somebody, find somebody who has done it before, because it's going to be extremely hard, if not impossible, to get this kind of financing if you cannot prove to the bank that you have experience doing this, right? Or something very close like it, and you have a successful track record of doing it. Some people just seemingly easily get financing for this stuff, but what you don't know is what they did to get there and who they partnered with, and you don't know all that stuff. It just seems like, oh, they're just getting financing. No, they probably partnered with the right people. They put their own money into it. They built credibility on the back of somebody else's experience, and then went from there.
Well, and that's a great point. That's probably more work than actually doing a build to rent, because and essentially something like this has, it has plans, it has timelines, it has a floor plan, like it has predictable pieces. I'm not saying there can't be unpredictable things when building something, but getting financing for, say, a development, or really anything that's a big investment like this that has actively changing risks, does take relationships that you have to build, and some credibility, right? Because you can go find somebody that's like, hey, you have $300,000, I need $300,000 to do this, and them just hand it to you. Yeah, that's It's a perfect world that is extremely unlikely. Most 99.9% people have never done this before. You need to go to a bank, and the bank's going to want you to limit risk. So you're likely going to have to scale down any big ambitions like 100 homes and, get some experience or people who around you that know what they're doing to show the bank, I have these people that can show experience that are working with me.
Absolutely.
Because when it comes to investor financing, experience and literally the experience form is one of the most important things.
And you know what, Kyle, it's 2025. If you don't know anybody that does this and you feel like you're on an island and you're for some reason listening to us and going, hey, this sounds like a great idea, I'd love to go find somebody. I mean, you could call us. We might be able to be that experience that you lean on, but more importantly, it's 2025. It's so easy to go online, social media, anywhere, and find a group of people that are interested in doing something as niche as this, as specific as this, and go start networking with them, start getting to know them, start going to their meetings once a month. There's real estate investment meetings where they talk about stuff like this every single month. You usually wake up and go have breakfast on a Saturday, listen to a hard money guy and a foundation guy talk for 10 minutes. And then there's a topic, right? And then you network with different investors and private money people, and there's so much out there right now, and it's easy to find it.
That's the hard work. That's the legwork, and it's you say it's easy, but it is easy, but it's hard. That's what you got to do first. Most people want to get started doing a build to rent. Well, you got to get started getting started, right?
You do. You don't just jump into this, but if you have experience, I mean, if you're an institutional investor, or if you're tied into an institutional investor, they're doing this like crazy right now.
And that's the thing. There's plenty, because it's so prominent, there's plenty of funds that are doing it where it's more of like, hey, we need money to do this. This is what we're going to do. We are experienced, blah, blah, blah. Instead of going to a bank, they go to investors, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, here's 50 grand for this much shares and this build to rent.
Well,
maybe that's not what you want, but there's varying levels.
And you could tie this into syndication. We've done podcasts into syndication, so you could take a project like this, wrap it up in a bow with a nice presentation and a plan, and turn it into a syndication. And now that's really advanced. And if you haven't done either of those things, I wouldn't do that. But I'm just talking out loud that if you've done those things, that's another way to help get it done. So. What else? Did we kill this topic a little bit? Did we talk people into or out of build to rents, Kyle? What do you think?
I don't know. It depends who you are. Tenants get excited about these. Because they're like not just new homes and single family, but it also gives like some. We mentioned briefly the common spaces, but you kind of get like
amenities sometimes,
and like it's like not just a new home. It's like being in an HOA, which some people hate and don't hate, and.
You might have a clubhouse, you might have a pool, you might have a park, you might have a fishing pond, there's all kinds of things depending on how big it is, right? Those are usually like I said, the bigger institutional investors are putting developments like that together. You might have a community center
with a lane for food trucks, I think you said.
Yeah, see? That particular, you know what? That's funny. That particular development had a private pool and a private kiddie pool with an area that was all private and fenced in just for their residents, and a separate pool outside for the community to. Isn't that great? And with a park.
You can't sit with us, but you can.
And a coffee shop and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, you can't sit with us, but you got your own. But I don't know. It was interesting. And people have creative ideas like that. There's money out there. There's ideas out there. And so this is just another way to do it. Build to rent.
But that's why local expertise is great, right? Because, they may know you're wasting all your time on these plans and stuff because the city council is not going to say anything to anything that isn't a cookie cutter house or whatever, or whatever. So, but yeah, it's, you guys want resources or want to talk about BTR, build to rent, give us a call, 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com. Sean and Kyle, all right.
We gone.